Tidak dia tahu. Kalau beli
Okay. Assalamualaikum and good morning everybody to all. So on behalf of Department of Standards Malaysia and Dr. Lui and the rest of the team, we would like to welcome everybody to our session. We call it Bicara Standard Untung. Bicara ada standard untung. Ada standard untung means profit is standards. So Bicara is like a talk show. So I discussed with Dr. Lui. So this session will be an interactive, casual session. So Dr. Lui will respond to you directly. And we schedule our session will end in 2 hours time. So we are now 10 a.m. in Malaysia. So we will end about around 12 noon. Okay.
Yes,
okay, thank
everything
you.
sounds
so
fine.
we're going to have a group photo first. So please switch on your.
Yes, everything sounds fine.
We're going to have a group photo first.
ya. Oke, stop sharing.
Okay, host, stop sharing.
Orang buat galeri ya.
Gathering.
Yes.
Okay, everybody. Ada Wan Fauzia, Assalamualaikum. Ali,
Waalaikumsalam
from
warahmatullahi
Green.
wabarakatuh.
Hi, thank you for supporting us and the rest.
Sure.
Okay, in the count of 3, ready? Our host. Ready? Okay, just give a few seconds for the rest.
Sure.
Video on. Adham, Muhammad Adham, January, Emelina, Janar Tidi, Ki Song Lim, Torina. Just give a few seconds. Everybody is switching on their video. Zula Zuan. Torina, okay. Jana Tiri, Jana Tini, Zula Zuan. Okay. Okay. Jana Tiri, Zula Zuan. Okay, ready, host? So in the count of 3, ready? Big smile, everybody. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Smile.
Okay, next slide ke?
Okay, second slide. Group photo. Okay, second slide. Akila, 7. Hi. Welcome everybody. Suyin. Okay, boleh proceed. Saya Muhammad Zain, second slide. Okay, ready? 1. Okay. Alright. So thank you everybody. Dr. Lui. So as I mentioned earlier, please feel free to interrupt Dr. Lui during his presentation. Take off my mask. Okay. Korang control. Yeah. So everyone from around the world, and first and foremost, of course, on behalf of the Standard Malaysia, myself, I'd like to 2001 anti-private year. This our world standard days. All right. A little background about my department. I'm now the president of this association of the ABMS practitioners Malaysia. I have been served as the vice chair of this committee, which is responsible for the design and development of this ISO 37001. Yeah. I have some background, long-standing backgrounds in anti-corruption advocacy since the Transparency International Malaysia and also the Secretary General. I have once served as the vice chair of UNCAC coalition and have been actually appointed as the UNDP special. I've been involved in since way back in 1997, which I represent Malaysia as an expert in the ISO TC 176, which is the ISO 9001, TC 207, which is the 14001, and ISO social responsibility 2,026,000 as well. So this is a little background about myself, some of my contacts. Yeah. To have you a little bit disclaimer, please take note as a disclaimer on this my presentation. All right. Now the World Standard Days is actually held on this October 14, which is tomorrow. And the theme for this World Standard Day for the year 2021 is Shared Vision for a Better World. And the standards are actually three organizations, which is the IEC, ISO, and also the ITU, which is the International Telecommunication Union. Right? International Organization for Standardization, which the word called pronounced as ISO. And this ISO is a word which means it's a Greek word, specific word, which means equal. Yeah. And International Organization for Standardization is never called an ISO or known as the International Standard Organization. The word ISO is actually pronounced, is a Greek word, which means equal. And equal, that some of the previous used like isotope, isosymmetric, and that is the word why it was formed ISO instead of IOS. Yeah? This organization was established in 1947, based in Geneva, and today there are 166 country members. Malaysia is represented by the Standards of Malaysia, Department of Standards Malaysia. And they have this ISO now have about 801 technical and subcommittee, and have developed more than 24,000 standards. The Department of Standards Malaysia, we have participated in about 295 technical committee and subcommittee as well. All right. These are some of the contribution of Malaysia at the international level.
We have chairman at the TC45. We have chairman at the TC45 subgroup 4, okay, and TC157 as well, and TC287 DCCG group, and also participated in the and Methodology Institute of Islamic Countries. These are the committee members or managers who are responsible, acting as a secretariat for this important technical committee. Myself has been involved as the vice chair for TC309 as the developing country, TCWG2, which is the ISO 37001 ABMS handbook. And as I mentioned earlier, I was actually one of the vice chair for the development of this ISO 37001 under the TC278, right? So, who developed this ISO standards? The technical committee, or what we call some the project community. They comprise of experts who are on loan, understand, from the country, and this expert share their knowledge in developing these standards. And these experts are actually nominated by national standard bodies. For example, in Malaysia, the Department of Standards. Yeah. This technical or project committee. This technical committee or project committee are the standards, and usually it is the international standard. However, besides this international standard, we may have other publicly available specifications and also international workshop agreement, right? So now let's talk a little bit more on our main focus today is about the anti-bribery management, the ISO 37001, which is the important standard that has been developed over this recent year. Bribery, as you know, has been defined by this Oxford and Cambridge dictionary, something that is given in order to influence somebody, define more effectively about offering, accepting, or soliciting an advantage as an inducement. And this inducement can be in a forensic investigation or doing any investigation. This word bribery by a different wording. For example, we heard before this word American pie, 681 American pie. And actually, one American pie is equivalent to $1 million US dollars. And it was used in one of these Malaysian scandal, one MBD scandal. And 681 American pie is equivalent to 2.6 billion ringgit that we have received. We have heard a lot of terms of bribery, for example, football money, under table, copy money, or do it copy or kickbacks. You know, and today not only they say under the table, but openly is on the table as well. And some have even is on the table as well. Yeah. In other countries, they use the word Washington apples and Malang apples. What are they? In Indonesia, when you want to pay in US dollars, they mean Washington apples. In Indonesia, if you want to pay in the Indonesian rupiah, it is called Malang apples, right? And there's another term called I love you, or in the Chinese, wo ai ni. When they use the term I love you, basically means that they want the bride to be paid in US dollars. And when they say wo aini, means obviously is to be paid in Chinese renminbi. Yeah, that is some interesting things that you like to know. What are these terms bribery being used? Bribery is actually a sub-form of corruption. And corruption has been defined by Transparency International as the abuse of entrusted power for personal or private gain. And bribery as one sub of this corruption. And there are many other forms of corruption. For example, nepotism, inside trading, cronyism, and others as well. When we developed this ISO 27001, the intention is to call anti-bribery management system to address the very basic form of corruption. If we have addressed bribery as the basic of give and take, meaning that we would have actually addressed a way of corruption. So that is the intention of the bribery ABMS system as well. So bribery actually, has been caused a lot of serious problem. In social, moral, economic, and political concern. It also undermines, some of this governance, good governance as well. So, and it has been a challenge, a big challenge to all of us, not only at national level, but also international level. And for the last 15 years, many countries have made effort, both at national and international level, to tackle bribery. Convention has been signed, law has been improved, and many countries now are prosecuting bribery offense. However, there's still more work to be done. So some of the law are already put in place. For example, the Foreign Corruption Practice Act 1977. The recent, UK Bribery Act in the year 2010. If you look into the history of the law in UK, they even have law established in 1889. Of course, in Malaysia, in our own context, we have our own Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission Act, started off with the Prevention of Corruption Act in 1967. Some of the important conventions which is developed over a period of time are, convention. Among them is the most important is this OECD Convention on fighting or combating bribery of foreign officials. Yeah. And another important convention is actually the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, the UNCAC. And in this convention, there's one article, Article 26. We talk about the liability of a legal person. And one of these articles, which is Article 26, which leads us to develop the corporate liability provision. Malaysia signed this UNCAC in 2003, ratified in 2008, and enforced in the same year as well. So Malaysia is now a signatory and has ratified the UNCAC convention. So, as I said earlier, last 15 years, the new wave of legislation have come about. UK started off or revised their UK Bribery Act in the year 2010. And along the way, a lot of the new wave of amending or Peru have a liability of bigger entity. Argentina have a corporate criminal liability. And other countries, for example, Thailand has also have their new act in 2018. India, Prevention of Corruption Act, which was 1988, and the year 2018 has introduced the corporate liability into it. And Australia at this moment is still a bill because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And this leads us where the new wave of legislation related to corporate liability has taken place. As I mentioned earlier, UK Bribery Act in the year 2010. Section 7 talks about the failure of a commercial organization to prevent bribery, and it was enforced only in July 2011. This law, placed the burden of the proof on the commercial organization wrongdoing to show that they have adequate procedure in place to prevent bribery. Yeah, and that is how the intention of this law is to be. These are some examples of the law and the regulation, but I like to highlight two countries. For example, Indonesia, they do not have a corporate liability law as per se, but the Supreme Court has interpreted the definition of criminal law. All right. Similarly, in Singapore, they do not have a corporate liability law as per se, but the definition of a person under the Singapore Prevention of Corrupt Act means the legal person and the natural person. What are they? I'll explain to you later. So we realize that business has lost due to bribery. So according to Transparency International study in the year 2000, 3,000 survey, respondents across 30 countries have reported that they lost business due to bribery. Yeah. And according to the OECD, an estimate that about 5%, more than 5% of global GDP, and over $1 trillion has been paid in bribe each year. So it is not only a question of ethics, but we simply cannot afford such wages, because this money could have been spent to improve the quality of life for millions, if not billions of people. So we realize that at organizational level, bribery do affect the tendering and the contract implementation, which may lead to cost, increased cost, and also risk. So at that moment in time, we already have an ISO, a management system for quality. For example, the ISO 9001. We have ISO 14001 for environment, and also ISO 45001 for health and safety. So why not we have a management system for anti-bribery control? So among the first few organization institutions, the BS, the British Standard Institute, decided to come up with this anti-bribery management system, in the year 2011, and it's called BS 10500. Basically, it's to help the industry in UK to address their UK Bribery Act 2010. I have the opportunity to review this draft because my friends in UK sent me a copy and asked me to provide some comment as well. So I was very happy to have the opportunity to review the first draft of the BS standard, in the year 2011. So this standard was published in November 2011, and it is called BS 10500. So well, this standard was published to address the Corporate Liability Act in 2010. So by the year 2012, organizations as large as 50,000 manpower, operating in 50 countries, organization with 36,000 staff, even a small organization with just 24 staff, has been certified to the British Standard 10500, the operating British standard. So I was thinking that in the year 2012, that having seen that the Malaysia, the UK have established the ABMS system, I approached the Department of Standard Malaysia to establish what we call a Malaysian Standard Working Group on ABMS. And Department of Standard of Malaysia is kind enough to grant me the opportunity to form this working group on anti-bribery management system in December 2012. Yeah, but at the same time, the ISO have the intention to establish a project committee on anti-bribery management system. And so in the February 2013, ISO issued a directive to inform all these national standard body that they have established an ISO project on ABMS. Since then, I approached the standard Malaysia again, that it's not necessary for us to work out on our own Malaysian standard on ABMS, but rather to follow this ISO standard level and then participate actively in this standard so that we can adopt this standard into our own Malaysia standard as well. Why I say so? Similarly, like the ISO 9001, the British standard started off with the PS standard 5750 quality management in the year 1979, and they escalate into the international level to be an ISO 9001 in 1987. So similarly, PS standard also do the year 1992 escalated this standard, the anti-bribery management system of the 10,500 to be an international level. So with this, I hope to get that we should participate in this standard. At the same time, we already have what we call this government transformation program. There are 6 national key result areas. First, and among the 6 is one important NKRA called is fighting corruption. And with this, you realize that the aspiration for fighting corruption are 3: to reduce corruption through enforcement and compliance, to improve the CPI ranking, and to improve our rakyat, our citizens' perception of integrity of the government and civil services. And are focusing on 3 areas: the regulatory and enforcement agency, government procurement, and the grand corruption, right? Among this, we also have this 9 initiatives. For example, strengthening and empowering the compliance unit. And today is a governance unit. And some of these initiatives, could have, some is in the pipeline, we may not have achieved. But among these initiatives is this one called developing a name and shame offender database. And today, the MACC website has this database to show. And this is one of the few initiatives which was quite successful. So with this, the background and the support of all with this NKRA, the commando, I have the opportunity to represent Malaysia, participate in this ISO PC71 committee. And so the chairman of this PC278 is Mr. Niles Stanbury. Myself as the vice chair, Mr. Mike as the secretary, and the secretariat is PSI. All right. So with this, PC278 was formed, and we worked on developing this ISO 37001. Okay. About 37 countries participated, 8 international organizations included. We have about 65 experts working towards this standard. Yeah. So you came up as a proposal in 2012 and 2013. And we have our first preliminary meeting in London, 27th of August for that. So from Malaysia, myself, expert from Pemandu. And once after that, I came back and do the presentation to Pemandu and Department of Standard Malaysia, and it's the ongoing activities. So for the next 5 preliminary meetings that we even have one plenary meeting held in Kuala Lumpur from the September the 28th to October 2nd. And I could hear some of the comments that we received and also debate and discuss during this plenary meeting throughout the development of this standard. We have 200 over, 447, 454, 448, and 706 comments received, discussed, and tabled. Our last plenary meeting was held in Mexico, right? So at this last, sometimes our standards, the word ISO sometimes we jokingly sometimes we say that it also stands for International Sightseeing Organization, because before the COVID-19 pandemic, we used to travel to different parts of the world because the country members like to host this summit in London, Paris, in Spain, USA, France, Malaysia, Mexico. So the last meeting was held in Mexico. The chair was not able to COVID-19 pandemic chair the last or the 5th plenary meeting in Mexico, right? And among these participants, I like to highlight that this gentleman is Dato Sri Mustafa Ali, who was then the Deputy Chief Commissioner of MACC, and this lady is Dato Junipa, who is currently the Deputy Chief Commissioner, MACC for Management. And these are the two experts, that they are representing Malaysia as the Malaysian delegate to participate in the ISO 37001. What I'm trying to say is that MACC has this 37001 anti-bribery measurement system since the day one. At the final draft, the vote comes in. We have received more than 90% vote. 3 countries voted no. And 1 country and 1 international organization give some comment. Actually, Transparency International voted yes for this. But because the voting, ballot voting is very unique. You either vote yes, no, nothing, or comments. And actually what Transparency comment was that agreed, voted positive for this standard to be published. That was a comment, but it was not taken as a vote because it was not electronically ballot voting. After this, we published this standard. That means after the positive vote has been carried out, the ISO 37001 was published and released 47 in the year 2016. And tomorrow, we are going to celebrate the World Standard Day, October the 14th. And in other words, this is also the anniversary of our ISO 37001, right? So basically, this ABMS standard, is to help us to prevent, detect, respond, and investigate bribery. Okay. I'm sure you all know what are the main contents. We have under the plan PDCA cycle, right? We have these clauses under the PDCA cycle. And if you look into the description, the structure of this ABMS, it actually fall under what we call the management system high-level structure. So all management systems, whether it's 9,000, 14,000, 45,000, and other management systems, they have the same structure. So we have the elements from 1 to 10. And if you see the dark text are the common high-level structure. When it comes to the anti-bribery management, we have one additional clause called 4.5 bribery risk assessment. And the core of this standard is actually under the clause 8, the operation. And that is where highlight out the key important requirement or the standards related to ABMS. It's the clause A. Okay. These are some of structure, the wordings in the ABMS system, and you see that those dark text are the high level structure. The blue text are the additional or supplement requirement under the ABMS system, right? And the core of this standard itself, as per se, for example, ABMS is under the operation clause A. Due diligence, financial control, operation or non-financial control, implementation of control, anti-bribery commitment, gift, that investigation, and dealing with bribery. Right? So these are the basic structure of the ISO 37001. And our ABMS system also subscribe to this sustainability 7 goal. At least 3 of these goals are met. Goal number 8, which we talk about decent work and economic growth. Goal number 11, which is the sustainable city and community. And goal number 16, which is actually peace, justice, and strong institution. And the target 16.5 talks about sustainably reduce the corruption and bribery in all of their forms. That is our goal. Now, if you quickly just summarize that the milestone of this ISO 27001. No, we have 1977, the FCPA. TI was established in 1993. OECD convention came out with the 13 good practices, yeah, in 1997. UNCAC in 2005, UK Bribery Act in 2010, the BS standard 10,500 in 2011, and then we escalate to publish the ISO 27001 in 2016. All right. So among the first few countries to adopt the ISO standard into their national standard is Indonesia. Mark this, they publish their own national standard equivalent of identical of this ISO 27001 in November 2016. And some of the countries have started to adopt it at the later stage. Malaysia, we adopted it in a year later, October 2017. And probably by end of this year, our Malaysian MS standard will be published in Bahasa Malaysia, yeah, soon. One is approved by relevant authority. So we are going to have a Bahasa Malaysia version of this ISO 37001. All right. So, in fact, when this standard was developed, I have started embarking on knowledge sharing. And among the first few knowledge sharing I did was on October 6th with the MACC and the CIS. On this initial the publication on about this ISO. And then October the 13th, 2021. This is my 112 public sharing, knowledge sharing related to ISO 37001. And I'm lucky that I was able to conduct education of the standard in 2016. The first training I had was January, and then most spend of my time, the first 2 years, training auditors in Indonesia and also Singapore as well. These are my first few training spent in Indonesia and also conducted. Right. At this moment, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any question, clarification, please post your question or raise your hand if you have any at the moment in time. I give you some. Sometimes, if you have any. If you have, you can just post up. Yes, Mr. David, please. Mr. David, I can unmute you. Yes, please.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you for sharing all this information. My question is, you did mention the 5 plenary sessions where you went to Madrid and ultimately Paris and Mexico City. Is that a typical procedure to go through? I guess, do you have 5 plenary sessions that you have to go through in order to collect comments? Or was it the fact that you were receiving a lot of comments that you needed to take then another plenary session to kind of process all the input that was received?
Okay. Just before the first preliminary meeting happened in March 2014, what happened is that we draft 1. And this community draft 1 has been circulated to all the country members who have registered and want to be in this committee, right? So we gave them about 2 months, in fact, 2 or 3 months before the preliminary meeting. A draft has been sent out and a comment. So for the first preliminary meeting, we received about 228 comments. With this comment received, we have the meeting in Madrid from March 25th to 27th to discuss this 228 received. So similarly, after the comments have been reviewed, we come out with the revised committee draft. Okay, and then this committee draft will take some time, maybe another 2 or 3 months. Okay, so once this draft, now it becomes a CD draft 2, and this CD draft 2 will be sent out to all the experts, the 60 experts, to review before the next second preliminary meeting. So 2 or 3 months before the meeting in USA in September 2014, they already received a CD2. And then once they have reviewed, we received 422 comments for us to discuss at the second preliminary meeting. And then so on and so forth. After this second preliminary meeting, we came up with a draft. And then this draft will be sent out to the expert again. They comment, they get back to us before the next meeting in Paris. And this is how it goes. So in the end, it takes time. That is why after the meeting, for example, the 5th preliminary meeting in June 2016, we received the comment, we reviewed, and it was only by October 14, we are able to publish it after the vote has been successful. So that is how the progress goes. All right. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Let me see what other question you have. Okay. Let's see. The public sectors in Malaysia mandatory to certify to this 37,001. I will explain to you in the next few slides. Yeah, Christy. Now, any upcoming schedule for lead auditor course organized by DSM in future? Actually, DSM do not organize lead auditor course training program. Understand? They are the custodian of the standard, but they do not organize public lead auditor course training. ABMS scope revolving around bribery. Is there any plan to widen the scope into corruption? Now, the standard of ISO 37001 is basically to address the bare minimum of bribery. For any organization to develop, their management system or the ABMS system to cover other aspects of corruption. Understand? So bare minimum, the bare minimum of the ABMS system, bribery, as I told you, bribery is one subset of corruption, but there is no harm and no stopping for an organization to go beyond bribery into fraud, into money laundering and other forms of corruption as well. Okay, noted. Any guidelines on developing performance corruption, risk assessment, and third-party due diligence? There are quite a number of guidance on corruption risk management and also due diligence. So specifically under that area, I think some organization, individual do provide such training. Can you give some opinion of the implementation of the DPA in Malaysia? What bribery cases would bribery cases increase? My intention is not to talk about DPA or the corporate liability, but some example of this DPA, Deferred Prosecution Act, has been utilized or been made active under the UK Bribery Act. In Singapore, in the year 2018, they incorporate or revise their Prevention of Corruption Act to include DPA. As far as Malaysia is concerned, I believe that there is a progressive movement towards developing this DPA in Malaysia at this moment in time. All right, I want to limit to this focus on anti-bribery management system. But if you can reach me, we can discuss further on this DPA. Okay, right? So there's no further question. Let us move forward. One more question. Okay. ABMS ABMS standard requirement, all industry or all kind of industry level. Basically, ABMS system, the scope should cover across all processes of an organization. Understand? It should not be narrow. Because if we are talking about anti-bribery management system, and if we reflect it to the what we call the section 17A, it's necessary that you have to address all processes in your organization. The next few slides I will explain further. Is there any reason the ISO 37001 or any other standard would not cover compliance program? There is another standard called ISO 37301, which is called the Compliance Management System. All right. And as far as this ISO 37001 is concerned, to address 37001, you must fulfill and meet all the regulatory, or rather the applicable regulatory requirements. In other words, meeting all these applicable regulatory requirements is basically addressing the compliance activities as well. Okay. Next is so involved in the development related standard. What is the feeling Malaysian crowded as the most corruption in the world? That's a tough question. Again, the word most corrupt in the world, I will say that I'm not in a position to say whether Malaysia is being corrupted country in the world, but the most important thing is that yes, we need to do our part, and ABMS system and other standards will probably help us to embark on a journey to make our country better in the eye of transparency, accountability, and also in the eye of the government. This is why the intention of this ISO 37001 is to develop what we call a culture of integrity. It may not happening sooner or not, but I believe it will. If we were to adopt this ISO 37001 as a management tool to address, detect, and also prevent bribery. Political funding. What do you think on political funding? ABMS can be used as a protection for the political financing. Under the clause related to the policy, there is a requirement you have to establish about contribution to political party as well. At this moment in time in Malaysia, we do not have this political financing law, but we do have some law related to election law, which may prohibit some of this contribution or money giving. So it is best, as it's under the ISO ABMS system, you need to address the policy related to contribution or a donation as well. Thank you, Kumar. Okay, let me continue. Okay, yeah. So ISO 37001 was first published in October 14, 2016. All right. And then among the first organizations to be certified to this standard is this Italian oil and gas company, Eni. So headquartered in Rome, and it was the first organization in the world to be certified on January 25th, 2017, right? So as a member of this community developing this ISO standard, I was very happy that there is a company has been certified to this standard. 2 days later, there is a scandal. Breakout. The news report released in Nigeria that the Economic and Financial Crime Commission has seized one oil block. This is the boil log license number 248, and investigating 2 petroleum giants, which related to what we call the Malibu oil corruption scam. 1.1 billion paid to a former petroleum minister and his ally as bribe. So it was shocking to me. It was equally shocking to the certification body as well. And also at the same time, the Italian works on their the legal aspect, and in December 2017, the federal judge have approved the prosecution of these 2 companies related to the 1.1 billion controversy sale of this oil block. It was only this year, March 18, that this Italian court has acquitted Eni and Shell of the corruption case. All right. But what happened actually? You know, you have to take note that when this company was first certified to this ISO 37001, the certification body realized that the scope of that ABMS system at that time is very narrow and very specific only. It doesn't warrant to be fully responsible for the full ABMS system. And they requested the organization to expand their scope. And today, this ENI has 160 sites worldwide certified to the ISO 37001, and they have expanded their scope, covering the upstream technical service, midstream gas and power, refinery and marketing of chemical, retail marketing gas and power, and also other supporting function as well. So what I'm trying to say is that when you adopt and implement the ABMS system, we should not have a narrow scope, just a procurement department or a sales department, but rather bribery can happen across the board, all levels of the organization and all business transactions as well. So it's very important that we have to make sure that the scope of the certification is applied across the company in terms of their business structure and business module as well. Next, I want to share with you the first 80 company has been certified to this ISO in the year 2018, right? So we even have a lottery gaming, okay, some industry, okay. Italy seems to be leading. Even today, Italy has the most certified organization to ISO 37001. All right. We have a casino, we have supermarket, hospital. What else? These are some of the services. Yeah, Robert Bosch, Korea, state-owned enterprise in Indonesia, very interesting. Among the first 4 or 5 organizations to be certified is one company called Hari Mukti Technique, which is involved in laundry business. No, not money laundering. It's actually laundering machine, yeah, real laundry machine business. So I was shocked when I looked at that at the first time. Okay, so these are some 80 companies we certified in the year 2018. China, we have the first ISO certified company, but it's the non-accredited certification. Yeah. So what is the difference between accredited and non-accredited certification? I'll explain to you later. These are some of the statistics now. December 2018, we have only 389 certificates, 219, 872, and end of 2020, we have about 2,065 certificates issued, and the site is about 5,946. Remember, the ENI, any company, oil and gas company, have one certificate, but it has 160 sites. That's the meaning. So a certificate issued to one company, but the site could be more, 160 sites. This is why they have more numbers. In China, there are about 440 certification bodies, issued about 467 non-accredited certificates. But 5 accredited certificates for 31 sites has been issued by one NAAB accredited CB. Today, up to this September, Malaysia, we have 113 organizations certified by SIRIM QAS, state-owned enterprise 34, government agency 42, private sector 37. In Indonesia, up to September as well, there are 273 certified organizations. State-owned enterprise 131. Government agency 104. Private sector 38. These numbers are interesting and they are all increasing. The number of certification body accredited by accreditation body for conducting ISO 37001 certificate. In Malaysia, only one certification body at the moment. Indonesia has 11 certification bodies. IAS in USA has 21 certification body accredited. And this accredited means they fulfill the ISO 17021 requirement as well. So in this Asia Pacific only, there are about 60 certification body accredited. Yeah. Malaysia, SIRIM at the moment is the one CB that has been accredited by Department of Standards Malaysia, and we make at least 4 certification body in Malaysia are seeking accreditation with our Department of Standards. Okay. So, any question, clarification at this moment? Taking my time, 1 hour now. Any question, clarification? Any question, clarification? No?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mr. Loy,
Yes, Anthony, please.
do you expect any organisations to certify to ISO 37301 as well as 37001, or possibly to choose one or the other?
Noted. Ladies and gentlemen, there's another standard which I'm trying to explain, is that there is a standard called ISO 37301, which is actually a compliant management system. Yeah. What happens is that this standard called the 37301, the compliant management system, is now certifiable. Before this equivalent called the ISO 19006, which is a guideline, and it was not certifiable at that time. So now the committee has developed this standard, and it is called the compliant management system. There is a lot of questioning, reasoning. So now we should take accreditation to compliant management system, which is the ISO 37301, or just purely 37001 ABMS system. So different school of thought that if you just want to go for 37001. If you are going to have what we call an integrated compliant management system, at this moment, when you heard the word integrated, possibly you are talking about 9,000, 14,000, and OSHA integrated as one management system. So compliant management system is not just meeting the basic of the ABMS system requirement. They are also addressing some of the compliant requirement. It could be the regulatory requirement, other requirements that is defined as compliant. So I believe that some organizations are offering this compliant management system, which I think should be cover all types of compliance programs. So if a company who wish to integrated or compliance system, I think this is what they meant to have a compliant management system. Okay?
Okay.
That's how I see it. Thank you. One question here, would there be any difference of getting certification with how would there be any difference of getting certification with that some of these accredited CB are what we call on par with this recognized auditors or certification body that can offer a certificate to the ISO 37001. All right. So there are some certification body who are, as I say, in the pipeline applying for accreditation. So you may be subscribing to some of these CB. Yeah, it started off with non-accreditation cert, but once they got their accreditation, you can, in a way, upgrade it to an accredited certification. My personal feel is that we should get certification from an accredited certification body. Okay. What happens it is subscribed to a non-accreditation body, it is not recognized. As far as as I mentioned, we should get a certificate from an accredited body. That's the whole intention. Now, not all, some of those international certification bodies, they already have an accreditation, not only from SIRIM, but from other accreditation bodies. And because of the mutual recognition agreement, those certificates issued by any accredited body for the CB to audit and certify organization to the ISO 37001, they are equally relevant and recognized as accredited certificate, right? Okay. Next, if a company is a 37001 certified, other supplier and vendors are required to be certified. That I will explain in the next few slides, Christy. But obviously, if you are subscribing to the ISO 37001, there is a requirement in the standard which required you to seek anti-bribery commitment and commitment from your supply chain, suppliers and the business associates. So it is equally important that, to fulfill this requirement, you will also require your supply chain to be committed to the anti-bribery compliance. Whether they are certified or not, there is another yardstick to measure. Now, may you share your thoughts on certain certification body that lack anti-corruption and expertise in conducting their certification over the client? Thank you, Teh Chow Chin. I do not have much what you call involvement with this certification body in their auditing process. Technically, all auditors, the ISO 37001 auditor, have to meet this requirement of the competency of auditors under the ISO 17021-9. This is the requirement for the competency of the auditors, yeah, who want to perform ISO 37001. So I would encourage, or rather emphasize, that those certification bodies need to meet this bare minimum of a competency of ISO or ABMS auditors before they even go out to audit this certification body. Yeah, all right. From MC Tan, is ABMS adequately address the adequate procedure? Yes, I will discuss it in the next few slides. Thank you. Okay. Concerning the punishment, fine, or any equivalent measure to address the breaches in ABMS from or commitment. So as far as the ABMS system is concerned, it is a management tool. The objective is to prevent, detect, and respond to bribery. Yeah, response to bribery. So if some organization put in additional control of of those who have breached their management system in terms of the wrongdoing, they may take further action. Okay. What would be the minimum requirement to qualify as the ABMS auditor? Yes, as I explained, minimum requirement to qualify as the ABMS auditor that you must attend the attend and pass the lead auditor course. And after attend and pass the lead auditor course, yeah, there are some criteria that you can have to meet. Is under the competency of the auditors. ISO 170. What was that? I say 17021-9. That is the competency of auditors as the ABMS auditors. All right. Got it. Okay. That's all for the time being. Thank you for your question and answer in between. and let me continue. All right. Now, ladies and gentlemen, in the year 2013, on August the 22nd, Tan Sri Abu Qasim, the Chief Commissioner of ACC, then announced that the corporate liability, will be incorporated in the MACC Act. There is a provision for this corporate liability, and is made known in the public in the year 2013. Okay. So in December 2014, it was also highlighted out that corporate liability provision will be tabled at the next parliament in March 2015. In 16 October 2015, the minister in the Prime Minister Department then also make the public statement that corporate liability will be tabled in the next parliament in March 2016. So since 2013, we are already preparing to table this corporate liability provision. October 2016, again, we said that corporate liability provision will come into in force in 2018. December 2016, the minister in the Prime Minister Department says that corporate liability to be passed in March 2017. December 2000, confusing over these years. And in September 2017, Dato Sri Azam Baki, then was the Deputy Chief Commissioner for Operation, was also reported in the Sinju Daily that this corporate liability provision will be tabled in October 2017. So we are preparing for this corporate liability. At the same time, this standard, ISO 37001 standard, should be adopted into a Malaysian standard, and it has been adopted on the October 27th, so that this can be used, as the to address the corporate liability when this is in place. So what happened? We launched this Malaysian standard on October the 27th, 2017. It was launched by the Deputy Chief Commissioner then, Dato Sri Samsun Baharin, and also the Department of Standard DG, Dato Fadila Baharin as well. So that was officially launched as a Malaysian standard. So why Malaysian standard is important? Because we believe that under standard, why? If you were to purchase this ISO standard from online, from ISO, it's costing us about 158 Swiss francs, equivalent to 711 ringgit. And because Malaysia Department of Standard is a country member of ISO, we have paying loyalty, and we have the privilege to adopt this standard identical and publish as our Malaysian standard. So from January 2019 to July 2021, Department of Standard has sold about 585 copies of this Malaysian standard. So this is equivalent to about 52,600 ringgit. If we were to pay and buy online, it will cost us about 711 ringgit, equivalent to 415,935 ringgit. In other words, if we have standard, Malaysian standard, kita untung lah, because we actually saved about 663,285 ringgit outflow of this ringgit. So it's important that we support our Malaysian standard and also get this identical standard, which is in part with the national standard. Among the first few companies who embarked on this ISO 37001, there is 10 pilot company who works with supported by MACC and the CIO and the SIRIM pilot project. So they got working on that, and they got the certification. They are pilot project, and they have a very narrow scope as well at that time. So among them, remember I told you one gentleman who represented Malaysia as the head of delegate Malaysia to the ISO 37001 committee is none other than Dato Sri Mustafa Ali. And he was seconded to be the DG of Jabatan Immigration Malaysia. He was equally keen to embark on this ABMS system. And Immigration Department among the first 10 pilot project that has been certified to the ISO 27001, yeah, in November 2017. So along the way, we realized that the corporate liability provision is important. So this corporate liability provision, along this way, the corporate liability was passed on April 5th, 2018. And these were amendments to section 330, 35, 33, 35, 36, 37, 38, including 2 new sections, 17 capital A and 41 capital A. So this amendment was passed and gazetted on May 4th, 2018. And it comes into operation on the 1st of October 2018. Yeah, all right. So section 17A, the corporate liability was already passed in Parliament, gazetted on May 4, 2018. Except section 17, capital A, has yet to be enforced or comes into operation. What happened? May the 19th, we have our GE 14 election. So in other words, this act of corporate liability provision was passed before the GE 14, May the 9th, 2018. Okay? So, when the new Prime Minister number 7 came in, and on November the 18th, he says that this ISO 37001 ministry, agency, department, and GLC, yeah, to develop a culture of integrity. That is November 2018. In fact, most of us didn't realize this, that before the GE election, Pakatan Harapan has came out with a 5-point of corruption manifesto on October 31st, 2017. Yeah, and among them is to promote the anti-corruption culture. Yeah, and that is the why most of us, even before the GE 14, 37,001 has been discussed and put into public eye. When the Prime Minister number 7 realized that the section 17 capital A is now been passed and gazetted, but not made in enforce, on this December the 10th, at this function, they announced that the enforcement of section 17A will be effective on the 1st of June 2020. Okay, right? And well, coming closer to the year 2020 in June, the new commissioner, Dato Sri Azam Bakri, made this statement that there could be a proposal to suspend or defer the implementation of this MACC Act Section 17 Capital A. And a lot of people responded to this. Transparency International, MICG, FMM, and even the American Chamber of Commerce voiced the concern that there should not be a delay in implementing and enforcing the Section 17 Capital A. And with this statement, the government decided that yes, Section 17A will be enforced on the 1st of June 2020, and it was gazetted on May 27, 2020. So with this, Section 17 capital A is now, it has been enforced since June the 1st, 2020. As most of you realize, what is this Section 17 capital A? It's an offense by commercial organization. So if a commercial organization, any person associated with a company has corruptly agreed to give, promise, or offer any person any gratification for the exchange or benefit of a business, this is deemed to have committed this offense. And you know that subsection 2 says that the fine would be not less than 10 times the amount or the value of the gratification, or 1 million ringgit, which is higher, or imprisonment for a term not more than 20 years or both. That is the Section 17A. And Section 17 capital A subsection 4 says that if the commercial organization has been charged for that offense, and there is a defense, and the defense is there to prove that this organization has adequate procedure. Understand? And this adequate procedure, the Minister in the Prime Minister Department for Law will issue this. So similarly to the UK Bribery Act, they have this 6 principles. And this 6 principles is spelling out that they have to address this adequate procedure to put in place to prevent bribery. So Malaysia, we have our own adequate procedure, and of course, it's adopt the acronym of trust, and they have 5 principles: top level commitment, risk assessment, undertaking control measures, systematic review, monitoring and enforcement, and training and communication. So we, Malaysia, has this adequate procedure called the Ministerial Guidelines on Adequate Procedure. Other countries, for example, Thailand, they have 8 principles, and it is called fundamental principle as well. So with this, that is necessary for us, why we have this adequate procedure. This adequate procedure, as I mentioned, was launched by the Prime Minister number 7 on the 10th of December 2018. And on that day, Prime Minister number 7 announced that the enforcement date was then June the 1st, 2020. All right, clear? So today we can get the copy of this adequate procedure from this various websites. There is also a test, and also there is also a handbook on how to address this adequate procedure. Okay, got it? So now, ladies and gentlemen, let's go a bit further. One of the questions raised by the audience is that whether the ISO 37001 would address all the adequate procedure. I would like to put it this way, that the 5 principles of our adequate procedure are actually mapped out to the ISO 37001. Top level commitment here. Risk assessment is spelled it out. Undertaking control also spelled out in this clauses of this ISO 37001. So in other words, if you have a management system, which is a structured management system, allows you to build a strong structure, and at the same time addressing the adequate procedure as well. All right. So that is how this principle can be mapped out to the ISO 37001. Remember, BS 10500 was developed basically to address the Section 7 of the UK Bribery Act and to help the UK industry to address their corporate liability. That is the intention of our ABMS system. Got it so far? Now, well, some other countries have adequate procedure because they have law. In Indonesia, they have what we call Panduan Pencegahan Korupsi untuk Dunia Usaha. Indonesia do not have a law as per se because it was under the Supreme Court that defined the corporate criminal liability. In Singapore, they have another guidebook called PAC, Practical Anti-Corruption Guide for Businesses in Singapore. In Singapore, the Prevention of Corruption Act defines a person means it can be a legal person or a natural person. So they do not have a corporate liability law as a separate law to address the corporate liability, but the definition of person covers two entities, which is the natural person or a legal person. This is what happened similarly to the Dutch law. The Dutch Criminal Code provides the criminal offense can be committed by a natural person or a legal person. Legal person means the corporate commercial organization. Got it? So Indonesia, as I said, they have a Supreme Court definition. And their first case, by the way, the Supreme Court was issued in December 2016. And within 7 months, they have a first case of corporate liability, which involved in the hospital project at this university in Bali. And the former president director was sentenced to the imprisonment of 4 years, and the company was ordered to pay a fine of 3.5 million. And then subsequently, within the next 2 years or so, there are 6 organizations in Indonesia has been charged under this criminal commercial crime. I mean, what we call corporate criminal law. All right. So in Malaysia, we have our first case now, the first case, a test case of this Section 17, Capital A. And this organization is facing a charge for offering a bribe amounting to 300,000, which was paid, very importantly, from June 29 to October 2020. And remember, the enforcement of our Section 17 Capital A was June 2020. Understand? So this organization has made some court appearance since the first in March the 18th, July the 1st after because of the pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic, there's a delay. Just a couple of days ago, they have their first case. They have their case management in October the 11th, and now there will be another convention in coming November the 16th. So this is our first test case related to Section 17A. So we are all eager to see how it going. So, ladies and gentlemen, any question, clarification? Any? Okay, let's see what we have here. Any question on the chat? Tak ada? Okay, there's no question from the chat. Anyone want to raise his hand or her hand? Tak ada? Okay. Yes, Sukumaran. Yes, Mr. Sukumaran, please. I can unmute you. Yes, Mr. Sukumaran, please unmute. Okay. Oh, mana Sukumaran?
Can you hear me, Doctor?
Yes.
Okay.
Please.
Good morning, Dr. Lai. The trust and our ABMS. Okay, the trust, do we have any accredited bodies to audit trust alone? Because many SMEs, they are unaffordable for ABMS. So that they can, by using, if anything happens, they can protect themselves by using only trust. Who is the auditor and the certification body? to issue the certificate for them. Thank you.
So what do you mean by trust? Does it mean that this certification body? What I'm not too sure what you're trying to ask.
Okay. Actually, this trust is developed by GIACC.
Okay.
Am I
Or the
correct?
trust, the five principal trust. Okay.
For 5 principal trust. And then who is going to audit, and then who is going to be the certification body for this trust only?
Okay, okay. So the question is that, is there a independent body who are authorized and to audit this adequate procedure principle of trust? Correct? That's your question.
Yes.
I do not see any organization that has been authorized to audit to this 5 principles of adequate procedure at this moment in time. But if you read these guidelines on adequate procedure, it is not just how adequate is this adequate procedure, you know, but it's actually how effective is the implementation of this adequate procedure. And you have to be very careful. You may have a well-documented procedure, understand? You may have beautifully crafted and developed and designed and written adequate procedure. But if it's not effectively implemented, it does not meet your requirement. Because some organization or 1 or 2 organizations in UK, which has been brought to task in the court, that they claim they have adequate procedure, and they say, but this adequate procedure were all under lock and key, and none of the staff and employee knew about this adequate procedure, how to assess this adequate procedure, how to implement this adequate procedure. So that would be the weakness. And there's one statement mentioned in the court that, you know, the CEO of that organization says that corruption is, everybody knows that corruption is not a right thing to do, right? Everybody knows that corruption is not the right thing to do. So I assume all my staff knew this doctrine. So corruption is not a proper thing to do. So they should know, and they should not perform any giving bribe or corruption. And that is what a statement. But the court rules out that that is not ineffective in your adequate procedure. You may assume that all the staff actually know that corruption is a bad thing, but you can't prove that your staff knew about it in the policy or in their activities. So that is a question. So thank you. I don't know there's anyone who should, but perhaps the organization have offer services to review and also to review and give a legal opinion on this adequate procedure. Yeah, thank you. Right, any more question, clarification? So there's none. I think let's just continue. Our National Anti-Corruption Plan, 2019 to 2003. There are 6 strategies, 17 strategic objectives, and 115 initiatives. It started well. I think it's a beautiful document that we have to follow and following it. And among these 115 initiatives, I believe at least the top 20% is important. And these are the government priority for reform. And among these 2 is actually the implementation of the corporate liability section 17 capital A, and also introduction of the MS ISO 37001 ABMS system. So the National Anti-Corruption Plan was fine, launched, and it was gracefully implemented. Midway, we have a change of government, and that government then, and under the special committee, cabinet committee, mentioned that this anti-corruption plan will continue, understand? So that we can enhance the integrity and administration. In other words, our national anti-corruption plan is good. In the midterm review, have now maintained the 6th strategy, the 17 objectives, and now there are 82 initiatives. Some may have dropped, some have been completed, and some has been integrated with other initiative. And what I want to highlight to you, there are 3 important initiatives which is related to the ABMS system. 2.1.3 talks about to introduce the implementation of this MS ISO 37001 certification in government agency. Deadline by December 2023. 6.23 to review the mechanism of implement ABMS certification for companies participating in the government procurement, December 2022. And 6.24, talking about the more training, implementation of adequate procedure, by the commercial organization, December 2023. So this is something that I'd like to highlight in our Malaysian perspective. We have a national anti-corruption plan, and these 3 important initiatives are related to the ISO 37001 ABMS system. Sorry. So not only Malaysia has such a law, Brazil, the state law of Rio de Janeiro, also specified that company interested in compliance program. Short to say it's ISO 37001, but just to say that it is a compliance program that is required. Sorry. So, any more quick questions, please? Okay, to add to the previous question, how to measure the effectiveness of our adequate procedure? Despite all the initiative training, we cannot prevent corruption in the total. Yes, of course, even the best organization in the world, you may have put policy procedure in place, but we cannot rule out that there could be 1 or 2 black sheep in the family may have involved in corruption. But as far as Section 17A is concerned, it's talking about corruptly give. If you corruptly give, you must put into action to prevent of giving up, corruptly giving out corruption. That means if someone in the top, has said that no bribe is to be given out, we could have addressed one aspect of it. But when you come to receive, but Section 17A, don't forget, it's only talking about corruptly give. At this moment, it is not covering corruptly receive. All right. So we are trying to put it in the right perspective that as far as ABMS is concerned, there are 2 types of corruption, which is the active bribery and passive bribery. Active bribery means corruptly give. Passive bribery means corruptly received. So that is the question in use. All right. Okay, so that, of course, even if you have ISO 9001, ISO 14001, understand? You have all this certification, but it doesn't mean that you may not have any issues at a later stage. You do have. But the question, the beauty of the ABMS system is that it is detection. But actually prevention comes. You prevent, detect, and respond. What are the response? When there is a wrongdoing, that is important. All right. The next question from MC Tan is that he's concerned about the word corruption being used on the adequate procedure, while the ISO 37001 restricted to bribery. As I mentioned earlier, ISO 37001 talks about the basic bribery. That means the active and passive bribery. Okay, that is the bare minimum 37,001 ABMS is to address bribery of give and take. If you have eliminated the give and take, that means you have addressed the issue. But there's no harm that an organization can go further. Instead of describing ABM briberies only, you can extend further. You can include other wrongdoing. Understand? So that is the word concern. I think some organization will use the word anti-bribery, anti-corruption. So you can extend this wording, yeah, from anti-bribery to anti-corruption as well. What is meaning of passive and active and passive bribery? Active bribery means corruptly give. Corruptly give, yeah, means give. Corruptly giving bribe is called an active bribery. Passive bribery means receiving bribe. Yeah. So one is considered outbound and one is considered inbound. So active bribery means giving. Passive bribery means receiving. Got it, David? Thank you. Okay. So, well, let's continue, I think. Our neighboring country, Indonesia. Remember the ISO 37001 was published in October, Impress number 10, 2016. Impress basically means instruction, president. It means the presidential instruction. And it was in October 2016 that issued a presidential instruction about fighting corruption. And among these action plan that meet required is to adopt the ISO 37001 for the private and the government sector. Remember when we have this ISO PC 278 developing this ISO standard, Indonesia was not part of this committee or the expert. And they came to know about it because Dato Sri Mustafa was involved in the ASEAN working group and they discussed about this standard in this corruption agency. And they got this concept and idea and they put into this instruction, presidential instruction, even before the publication of this standard. Second thing is to explore further on this ISO 37000 and draft. And thirdly, they want their national standard body now to be involved in this standard developing of this ISO 37000. So that's very unique. So when this came into picture, remember in the year 2017, I had the opportunity to be in Indonesia, invited by the Standard Indonesia, and so the anti-corruption agency talk about this standard. The presidential head of presidential staff tweets about this standard. So there is a growing interest in this ISO 37001. In the oil and gas industry, this regulatory body was first certified in October 2018. And down the supply chain, you know, they have key operator. About 10 of the key supply chain operator is now certified to this ISO 37000. They even put it in their national strategy, yeah, in the year 2019 and 2020, implementing ABMS system in the private sector. And for the state-owned enterprise, in Indonesia, there are 162 state-owned enterprise, and the ministry has issued directive in early 2020 that all 162 state-owned enterprise have to be certified to ISO 37001. In September, more than 80% of this state-owned enterprise has been certified. 131 state-owned enterprise has been certified to this standard. Okay, So that is the unique of what our neighboring country is doing. In Korea, there are 340 state-owned enterprise, and today there are about 22 organizations has been certified to the ISO 37001. So, whereas Thailand is slightly unique, there is not industry going for this ISO 37001. But there is one private sector, we call the Thailand private sector on collective action against corruption. They developed about 71 point called the collective action against corruption checklist. And they have about 1,000 over company members. Yeah, half of them have actually been certified to their own checklist, which they prefer that to engage this instead of seeking ISO 37001 at the moment. So Korea, as I said, they move forward. Yeah, they have this one called public sector being certified. Okay, and this is how this environment. So lastly, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to share with you that the ISO PC 309 is a technical community which we developed the ISO 37000, the governance of organization guidance. We have published a handbook in together with the UNIDO. We have also published the whistleblowing management system ISO 37002 and the compliance management system 37301. In the pipeline, there will be another new standard on governance maturity model on selecting, creating and using indicators, a guidance for governing body, indicators for effective organizational governance, and also internal investigation. So we have whistleblowing. So to support the ISO 37001 ABMS, we are going to develop another standard talking about investigation, internal investigation. So ladies and gentlemen, with this, I will end my presentation. Yeah. If some of you like to share this talk again with your colleagues and your friends, I'm going to have a similar talk on the 23rd of October 2001. So do not hesitate to contact me, yeah, if you need any further clarification on this ISO 37001. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very happy to conclude my presentation. I hope you enjoy this journey that I took. And if you have any further question, clarification, please do not hesitate to contact me or post any further question in this talk webinar. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Any further clarification? Any more question, clarification? Okay, let me see. Can you please repeat? Okay, done. Will DSM adopt and publish the MS standard? Okay. The ABMS handbook, DSM will not be able to publish because of the copyright. It has been jointly published by the ISO and the UNIDO, and it can be made available on online sales. Log into the ISO website, and you will be able to see that this handbook has actually available for sales. Now, second question is that will the whistleblowing management system will be adopted and published as the MS standard? Yes. Similarly, probably this ISO 37002 whistleblowing management system will be published as the Malaysian standard, identical by the end of 2021. Hopefully, there is a pipeline and we are going to publish it as Malaysian standard. So that is very important. Other standard untung. So we can buy and purchase it as a Malaysian standard.
You have profit
Yeah.
standard.
All right. Next question is, let me see. Has Indonesia overtaken Malaysia in the effort to combat bribery? As most of us realize that Indonesia, as in the past, is well known for petty corruption and also grand corruption. But when President Jokowi came into power, he has actually put in a lot of effort to fight corruption in Indonesia. And as I say, way back in September 2016, the presidential instruction has also identified ISO 37001 as a tool to address this corruption. And you also see that some of the areas which I shared, their national strategy plan has also put in a lot of effort to address this corruption. So I believe Indonesia has put in a lot of effort to fight corruption. However, there is one feedback from the public is that the KPK, the anti-corruption agency in Indonesia, is facing an uphill challenge as well. I believe there are some 100 over dedicated officer has been removed because they do not pass the some examination of civil government examination. So I believe there could be some side track, but Indonesia, in the eye of the public, actually have fight or address corruption in a proper way. All right. Next question is that do you see any correlation with the ABMS implementation and the corruption index, CPI index? I strongly believe that it may not be directly correlated, but it's very important for a country to have this ABMS implementation in place as one of the management tools to help to address corruption. And a lot of organizations, I mean, some advanced countries, developed countries like Korea, is putting a lot of effort now, not only in the private sector, but also in the public sector, to have this system in place. And with proper accountability, governance, integrity, and transparency, you will probably improve our CPI index. Okay. All right. Noted. Some of you may like to read my slide. I don't know how I'm going to send to you, but Anthony, don't worry. I'll make my personal. Send it to you. Yes. Another question for Idaya from Indonesia, Mako, I think. If we have a plan to certify one of our assets in overseas, but no local certification educated by, what will be the risk? I'm sure you can get the local, there are some certification body which has been accredited by accreditation body. And I say that because of the mutual recognition agreement among the accreditation body, the CB get the equal recognition as well when they certify to this ISO 37001. Yeah, I'm sure we can do that. Don't worry. I think you can talk to me for that.
Last question.
All right. So I think, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for your time. Is there any last question that you'd like to pose?
Last question.
It's none. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your time. And please do not hesitate to contact me if you seek any further clarification. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to your participation, involvement in any future undertaking as well. So with this, ladies and gentlemen, I like to pass this session back to our organizer. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Dr. Lui. On behalf of Standards Malaysia, we would like to thank everybody for your participation and support for our session, Bicara Ada Standard Untung, You Have Profit with Standards. And on behalf of the Secretariat, we will post the video to our Standards Malaysia YouTube. So give us some time before we can post that video. With that, thank you everybody. Hope to see you again in the next session with Standards Malaysia and with another speaker with a different topic. Okay, Dr. Lui. Okay, bye bye everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Siapa ni? David. Thank you, David.
Dr. Roy, thank you. Thank you so much. Bye.
Liza.
Thank you.
Sirim, daripada Sirim, bukan? Thank you. Who else? Thank you for your support.